So there's two things. How do we move away from language and and what is consciousness? So just small questions.
Well, I mean, the biggest questions that you could possibly ask, basically. Yeah. So, of course, these are sort of central problems of philosophy that have been kind of debated since the beginning of time and will be debated till the end of time. And I can't possibly do justice to the history of Western thought, but the idea of, because of course, in philosophy, we have, broadly speaking, you have metaphysical questions about the nature of reality. You have epistemological questions about the nature of knowledge and how you can know something. You have phenomenological questions about the question of experience and what experience means. And throughout these questions over history, different philosophers have come and tried to come up with different ways of understanding these questions through different philosophical movements, realism and idealism and existentialism. And there are so many different philosophical schools that have approached these questions in different ways. And I mean, essentially, it seems that you're asking about how do we talk about reality? How do we get to reality? And again, this is one of the problems with, contemporary philosophy, in a sense, kind of, in recent years, sort of abandoned that problem and decided, well, actually, let's not worry about what reality is, because so of course the whole postmodernism was criticized for its sort of relinquishing of the problem of the real out there, the thing in itself. After Kant, we sort of stopped thinking about that because it's like, well, we just need to think about the mediated nature of reality because we can never get to the thing in itself. And actually, in recent years, a movement in contemporary philosophy called speculative realism sort of grew up, where people were getting sort of annoyed with this idea and wanted to connect philosophy much more with the hard sciences and much more with the question of the brute objects. Sort of object-oriented ontology is a sort of branch of that, and then new materialism. So all these sort of different branches of philosophy which try to engage more with the object in its intractable nature. Then this idea of this real thing in itself is itself a philosophical problem, because you have philosophers working, with sort of quantum physics and microbiology and cosmology and all these other discourses where they still come up against the same problems. And so in sort of the philosophy of science and the philosophy of maths, you get to the point where philosophers are banging up against the door of the hard sciences and mathematics, and they'll come to a point where actually it's of an intractable problem. You don't suddenly get to the real thing that it is you're looking for, because each discourse has its own way of trying to understand what that real thing is. For sort of Lacanian philosophers and Hegelian philosophers as well, we sort of tend to talk about reality as a sort of negative thing, as a negativity, as a void, as a sort of, rather than a positive entity, it's, the subject or consciousness or whatever you want to call it is actually an inherent emptiness or lack that it can't be articulated. And that's actually to what you might call consciousness, because it's something that isn't actually there, rather than a positive thing that you can identify, if that makes sense.
So that's extremely interesting you said that, because in the Hindu texts, when they speak about Shiva, that actually is translated as no thing, as in nothingness. So the idea of nothingness and everythingness is quite linked. And I think there is so many overlaps as well when it comes to like philosophy and when it comes to Eastern philosophy, when you get to the cruxes, because essentially you're asking the same questions, isn't it? And I think essentially all roads kind of lead to the same place.